The day the letter arrived, I knew it wasn't just about paint. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in suburban Ontario. The maple trees were just starting to turn red, and I had finally finished painting my house the color I'd dreamed about for years, a deep, ocean blue that reminded me of the lakes my father used to take me to in northern Canada. It wasn't neon, it wasn't outrageous, it was just mine. By noon, there was an official-looking envelope taped to my front door. Violation notice. The Homeowners Association claimed my house color was visually disruptive and not in harmony with community standards. I stood there on my porch, rereading the words while a cold autumn wind brushed past me. Harmony, community standards, as if my home, the one I worked 2 jobs to afford, was some kind of public disturbance. I had moved into that neighborhood after my divorce. Starting over at 42 in Canada isn't easy. Mortgage approvals, child support, rebuilding credit, it felt like climbing a mountain in winter boots. Painting the house blue wasn't rebellion. It was healing. It was the first decision that felt like it belonged only to me. But the HOA president, Margaret, didn't see it that way. Margaret lived 3 houses down. Perfect hedges, perfect beige siding, perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. She knocked on my door 2 days later. "We have guidelines for a reason," she said gently, though her tone carried steel. "Neutral tones maintain property values." Property values. I looked past her at the row of identical taupe houses lining the street. "It's just paint," I said quietly. "It's not approved paint," she corrected. "The fine was $200 a week until I repainted." I tried to fight it the reasonable way first. I attended meetings in the community hall, sat in folding chairs under fluorescent lights while a small board voted on the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. I showed them photos. I explained that the color was professionally done, high quality, tasteful. A few neighbors even whispered that they liked it. But no one wanted to challenge Margaret. Weeks passed. The fines piled up. Every time I drove home from work and saw that beautiful blue under the gray Canadian sky, I felt both pride and dread. One evening, after another letter warning of legal action, something inside me shifted. If they thought my house was disruptive, I would show them disruptive. I didn't repaint. Instead, I hired a contractor. When the first panels went up, the street buzzed with curiosity. Large, weatherproof mirror panels, custom cut and professionally installed across the front facade of my home. Not cheap decorative mirrors, architectural-grade reflective panels designed for exterior use. By the end of the week, my once blue house reflected everything around it. The maple trees, the clouds, the sky, and directly across from my house, Margaret's home. On sunny afternoons, light bounced off my mirrored exterior and poured straight onto her beige siding. Not a laser, not a weapon, just pure Canadian sunlight reflecting back at the source of my frustration. She stormed over the first day the reflections hit. "This is harassment," she snapped. "It meets every guideline," I replied calmly, holding a printed copy of the HOA handbook. There was nothing about reflective surfaces. No clause banning mirrors. I had checked twice. The irony was almost poetic. She had enforced the rules down to the shade of beige. I was simply following them. Within days, the neighborhood couldn't stop talking. Some were amused, some were annoyed, a few secretly delighted. Kids walking home from school paused to fix their hair in my walls. Delivery drivers laughed. One elderly neighbor told me it was the most interesting thing to happen on the street in 20 years. But Margaret wasn't laughing. The glare intensified during peak afternoon sun. It didn't melt her house, of course, that's dramatic storytelling, but it certainly made her living room warmer than usual. She had to keep her blinds shut most days. The same sunlight that she claimed protected property values now became her daily inconvenience. Another emergency HOA meeting was called. This time, the room felt different. People spoke up. A young couple mentioned how restrictive the rules felt. A retired man admitted he'd wanted to repaint his door red for years but was afraid of fines. Someone else pointed out that no one complained about the identical rows of dull houses lowering morale. Margaret argued about order, standards, uniformity. I stood up slowly. "I moved here after my marriage ended," I said. My voice wasn't angry, just tired. That blue paint was the first thing that made this place feel like home. I followed every official step I could. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just wanted a little bit of color in my life. The room was quiet. In Canada, I continued, we talk a lot about diversity. About freedom. About letting people be who they are. Why does that stop at our front doors? It wasn't applause that changed things. It was the silence, the kind where people start thinking. Within a month, the HOA revised its guidelines. Homeowners could submit custom color requests with reasonable approval standards. Reflective exteriors were added too, interestingly enough. I agreed to remove some of the mirror panels and keep a partial reflective design as an artistic feature. Margaret eventually stepped down as president. We don't speak much now, but when we do, it's civil. My house. It's still blue. And when the sun hits it just right, a soft shimmer remains, not blinding, not hostile, just a quiet reminder. Sometimes standing up for yourself isn't loud. Sometimes it's reflective. If you've ever been told to tone yourself down to fit in, maybe this is your sign not to. Because a home isn't about matching everyone else. It's about finally seeing yourself clearly in it.